Welcome to Honoring the Journey. I'm Leslie Neese, your host, and today I am joined by someone I actually am super excited to hear about her journey. Her name is April Ajoy. Is it Ajoy or Ajoy?
You could say it either way. It's actually
Either
my
way.
middle name, and I say Ajoy.
Ajoy. Okay, April
Yes.
Ajoy. I like
Mhm.
I like that because you're a joy, and you really are. So it fits
Oh,
very well.
that was why my
Um,
parents named me that, by the way.
Is they
Yeah.
had, like, this premonition. They were like, "She is going to be a joy." Anyway, April is an author, she's a content creator, a podcaster, and, here's the cool thing, she has a book coming out in October called The Star Spangled Jesus or Star Spangled Jesus,
Yes.
and, Leaving Christian Nationalism and Finding True Faith, which I don't know, April, I think there's gonna be a lot of people that can resonate with that. We see waves of people leaving evangelicalism whenever there's a political season. So I have a
Yeah.
feeling we're getting ready to have another wave at the end of the year. But anyway, I'm so excited to have you here, April, and hear about your journey. Welcome to Honoring the Journey.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm super excited to be here as well.
One thing you've been doing recently too is you've been hanging out with Tim over at the new Evangelicals doing like is it like a weekend sort of update? Kind of
Yeah, we
reminds it's
call
very Saturday Night Live-esque. It reminds.
Yeah, it's called the recap, and we
Yeah.
basically just recap whatever happened in the previous week. So they drop on Fridays, and it's just
Oh,
from the
so fun.
previous episode to that. Yeah, we try to keep it lighthearted because a lot of the
Yes.
news is really,
Not.
really heavy. And
Yeah.
obviously there's some things that you can't laugh about, but
Yeah. Yeah.
we try to find humor in the chaos.
Yeah, I like the feminine voice too. I think it's good. You guys have good chemistry together. It's fun. So
Oh,
I'm
well,
glad
thank
you're
you.
doing that. It'll be fun. And what I like to do when I start my podcast off is I like to ask just a random question about your life and get to know you as a person, not as the podcaster, the content producer, TikToker, whatever you're, doing, but like as April, the person. So I was like, I have three that I was trying to decide through, but I think I'm going to ask you this one. What challenge in your life shaped you the most and why? I have a feeling I
Mm,
know there are probably a lot of them.
yeah, there's probably a lot. I mean, the the one that I can think of where I feel like I have the before this happened and then after this happened was a clear change, and I don't challenge may not be the right term for it, but when my dad passed away,
Oh,
because
yeah.
I was 23, and it was in 2011, and so I was raised very Pentecostal, and so we believed in faith healing and that, as long as you have enough faith, God will answer your prayer.
Mm.
And so my dad was diagnosed with stage 4 non-smokers lung cancer in May of 2011, was given 6 months to live, but we were like, "No, no, that's we don't accept that. God's going to heal him." And yeah, so but he passed away 4 months later, so he didn't even
Oh,
make the
the 6
6-month
months.
mark. And so that honestly, I would say that was probably when my deconstruction or, just kind of reimagining faith and my beliefs and ideology really started, because I could not have had more faith that he
Mm.
was going to be healed and he wasn't. So then I was suddenly faced with like, okay, well, does God not answer prayer if
Yeah,
you
what
have
is
enough
this?
faith? Like, do I have any control in this? All the
Mhm.
questions, or just like, God, why would you do this? Maybe God doesn't answer prayer. So that kind of kick started. I probably deconstructed like more charismatic Pentecostal beliefs
At that
first.
point, yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm so sorry about your
Yeah.
dad.
Sorry.
That
Didn't
really
Thank you. Sorry. I didn't
no,
mean to start on such a downer.
no, no, but you know what? It's a life-changing moment, when
Yeah.
you lose somebody that you care about, and especially when I mean, if anybody is listening and has been in evangelicalism, you've probably been faced with that whole, like, "Why didn't they get healed?" So
Yeah.
many times, and it is very, very difficult, the answer is always the same, when you start asking questions, they're like, "Well, God's ways are not our ways,
Yep.
so, just deal with it. It's okay. He knows what's best." And
Yeah.
it's like, "Wait, how is this best? This
Right.
isn't best."
And there's also, like, kind of a toxic positivity too,
Mm,
where I'm like, my
yep,
sadness wasn't like, there was some empathy, but for the most part, it was like, "Why should you be sad? He's in heaven. He got his ultimate healing. You'll get to see him one day." And I was like, "That's not what
yeah,
I was praying for."
yeah, exactly. So, so fervently. Yeah, I when I was
Mhm.
on Christian radio, I remember I had some health issues and wound up having to have a hysterectomy. And, I'm talking about I'm very open, always have been. And so I would talk about I'm gonna be getting this hysterectomy, and people would call in. I don't know why they felt like they had authority over my life. I guess because they listened to me on the radio. I don't know.
Yeah.
And they would say, "Well, you really just need to pray for healing." Like, "Why are you getting a hysterectomy?" And, like, yelled at my husband for not,
Oh,
leading me in the right direction, like, she needs healing, not surgery, and it's like, do you not understand that, like, surgery can be healing?
right.
And it
And, like,
actually
why
was.
do they care if you
I
still
know,
have
it was
your ovaries?
insane. It was insane, it was so insane, and so I just remember that was probably I mean, there were so many things, but
Yeah,
yeah, that whole faith, just name it and claim it, and, just and then
right,
you're like, "What is my faith broken? Am I broken? Why didn't that work? It should be
right.
working," you
Well,
know?
and in hindsight, I realized that people were saying a lot of those things to me because it was a defense mechanism. Because
Mm,
if they couldn't just accept that God just didn't answer my prayer,
yeah.
because then they would also have to ask the same questions that I was asking, and it's a defense mechanism to keep your beliefs intact.
Wow, that's so true. That's a very good observation. So, you were in evangelicalism apparently for a long time, and I think you led worship, didn't you, or something? Or well, not
Mhm.
led because you're a woman. You were
Yeah,
under
no,
a leader.
yeah, well, I was not the worship pastor, but I was a
Right.
worship leader, at several different churches, from youth group, all the way to an adult when Beecher and my spouse, got married.
So how was that transition? I know you say you started asking questions in 2011, after losing your
Mhm.
father, which makes complete and total sense. When did it start to really pick up?
Yeah, so I think there were a couple things that happened along the way. Like in 2015, my one of my brothers came out to me as gay,
Mm,
and we obviously believed it was a sin,
right.
and
Just make a choice, bud. What are you
right,
doing?
yeah, like it was a choice. It was either demonic possession or demonic oppression or
Mm,
demonic influence. Like there was a demon involved somehow.
of course. Yes, of course.
um, so I instantly started questioning theology around that because my brother grew up in the same kind of homophobic household
Mm,
that I did, and I know that there was no way they would choose that. And they had told me they'd cried. They knew since middle school he had cried himself to sleep every night, like begging God to make him straight. And so I honestly, it was kind of an instant, like, okay, I don't know exactly what I believe, but I know what what I'm being met with now is not adding up with my
yeah.
ideology. Um, and so but I still I mean, I wasn't, like, affirming right away. I remember when he first told me, I mean, he's bawling, and I hug him, and I feel like for where I was, I responded well, but I did hear myself say, "Well, we know what the Bible says."
Oh,
So
yeah. Yeah, I did that too, just so you know. I mean, I think a
yeah.
lot of us did, and I do think it's very hard to come out of that until you love somebody who is going
Mhm.
through it, and then all of a sudden, you start to question because you're like, "Wait, this doesn't make sense. This person
Right.
isn't making a choice. This is just who they are, and why do we have to
Right.
exclude them from from eternity because it makes no sense after a while. But honestly, I don't think I ever asked a question until there was somebody I loved who
Yeah.
was gay. And then all of a sudden, I think it can start that ball rolling for a lot of people because when you realize how convoluted the translation is in the Bible for that word homosexual, which wasn't even a word until what, 1868. It's like, how did it get in a Bible written 2000 years ago? And then you start going, "Wait a minute. Okay, this is if it's wrong about this, what else am I being taught that
Mhm.
may not be 100%?" And I think that starts a lot of people's journeys for sure.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, totally. So I and like yeah, there was a bunch of other things too that kinda kickstarted it, like my spouse, Beecher.
Mhm.
Um, they're out now non-binary,
Uh-huh.
but we didn't know that when we got married. Um,
Oh,
and so going through, like, their gender, journey to figure out who they were, and and like we would go to like church marriage conferences, and the speakers would be like, "Oh, husbands do this and wives do this." And like even I mean, I'm cisgender woman, but I didn't fit in the stereotypical wife boxes. Like I
Yeah.
tried really hard to fit into those boxes, but it never felt natural, and it always felt like I wasn't being myself in that, and the same thing went for Beecher. And so we would go to these, um these marriage events and, trying to be the best Christian married couple that we could, but we just left feeling weirder and more isolated because
Mm.
there was no one we could talk to about what was going
Who
on.
wouldn't judge you or try to put you in a box. Yeah.
Right,
Mhm.
and we had no like, we were really ignorant too, like, we didn't know what gender dysphoria was, we didn't have any language for what was happening other than, well, if it's not, heteronormative or, it doesn't it's probably, demonic,
Of course,
so,
yeah.
I
Here we
mean,
go
and I
again.
right, and I literally have, with consent, like, as the Pentecostal in the marriage, like, I laid hands on Beecher and tried to cast the demons out of them. So, it was like,
Wow.
we can laugh about it now, but we've kind of been going through, like, the last few weeks just kind of reconciling with, like, how not okay
Yeah, how
that
traumatic.
was.
Yeah.
Right, it's really traumatic to believe at one point that, for Beecher, that they had demons,
Mm.
and that was out of their control, and for me to believe that my spouse or the person I loved had that, and like be okay with it, but also like we got to get rid of these demons, which we never
Wow.
saw.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but apparently they were there, but they weren't. So
Yeah.
so yeah,
Yeah.
so that journey, and then and then honestly, Donald Trump
Oh, yeah.
was probably the catalyst that made a lot of things in hindsight start to make sense that I kind of had tucked away for a while. But then
Mm.
when I saw a lot of my Christian leaders that I had respected my entire life, like the Franklin Grahams of the
Mhm.
world,
Yep.
who
Same.
had taught me, like, under Bill Clinton, that character mattered, that, we couldn't have a president that had affairs, because if he would cheat
Yeah.
on his wife, what would he do to the country? And then suddenly with Donald Trump, it was like, "Oh, well, we're not electing a pastor. We're
Yeah.
electing a president." I'm like, "Oh, now?"
Wait a
So it's like,
minute.
has it been about power this whole time? I did
Hmm.
so yeah, that was really the big thing that made all of the other things kind of come to a head, and I had
Yeah.
to start reconciling those things.
I have to agree with you on that one in my journey as well. There was a lot of things that, started the ball, but I think 2016 and 2020, I
Mhm.
yeah, I was like, "Whoop, no." It's that whole like, okay, if they're teaching me this and I know this is not right, what
Yeah.
else am I believing that isn't true? And is it possible? Because you put so much faith and trust in what you're being taught and what you're being said that or what they're saying that the Bible actually means by certain things. And you believe it
Yeah.
and you teach it and you sing about it. And it's reinforced and reinforced until one day it's like a glitch in the matrix. And then you're like, whoa, wait a minute. And then you have to choose, am I gonna take the blue pill or am I gonna
Right.
take the red pill? And once you take it, there's no going back. I mean, it sounds like it's such a familiar journey to a lot of people, but it's so painful and so difficult. So
Yeah.
were you leading worship when all of this was happening? Were you in church,
Yeah.
you and Beecher?
Yep, we were in
Oh, wow.
church. So in 2016, we, actually had moved. I was working for, the CBN 700 Club
Oh,
at the
wow.
time. Um
Nice.
yeah, my
Wow.
my evangelical street cred is
Yes.
top notch.
Top notch, yes.
Um, but yeah, so we had actually moved that year from Virginia Beach, which is where, CBN is,
Mm.
to Cleveland, Tennessee, which is Church of God headquarters, because Beecher took a job at Lee University, which is a Church of God school,
Wow.
and I was pregnant, so we were moving to be closer to family, and Beecher's family lived in Georgia. So we moved there, and, it wasn't I pretty much got involved in a church pretty quickly, like, we were just at that point, we believed, good Christians, good people
Yes.
go to church. So,
Right.
and
Mhm.
if we didn't go to church, we had that guilt of like, oh my
Oh,
gosh,
yes.
we're opening the door for Satan. Like,
He's gonna get a
so
foothold.
right, we didn't want any foothold, so we were gonna slam that door shut. So we started going to church. I got involved in the choir. We didn't go to that church for very long though, because the Sunday before the 2016 election, the pastor of that church got up, and this was in Dalton, Georgia. So this is the same. We like drove 30 minutes to go to church. And Dalton, Georgia is the same district that Marjorie Taylor Greene's from, just for
Mhm.
some context.
Some context. Got you.
Yeah. So the pastor got up, and this was probably 1,000 member church. It was not small. And he said, now, here at this church, we're not going to tell you who to vote for in the election, but we will tell you that you just need to vote for the candidate that is the most biblical, that will hold biblical values, that is anti-abortion, pro-life, pro-Israel. I think he said pro-gun, and pro-biblical marriage. Like basically like listed all of the things that okay, we know he might as well have said in rhymes with rump because we knew he was talking about Trump. And
Or grump.
I was fuming at the time because I was like,
Oh,
this is
yeah.
so like I think that the Christian nationalist aspect of my evangelical beliefs was like I was realizing it in real time how political my faith had been the
Mm,
whole time.
mhm.
Um, but it was making me mad, like at the system, but also at myself for not seeing it sooner. But yeah, I was like, Beecher and I looked at each other like, we're not coming back to this church. So then we found another church that was, yeah, probably problematic in other ways, but not
In that
like
way.
like not, yeah, not Christian nationalist and just a little more like a chiller version of
Mhm.
mainstream evangelicalism. Yeah.
Interesting. Wow. Okay, so when you guys finally pulled away from church, like, how was that? Did you have a lot of the guilt? Did you feel that initially, or how were you just
S-
ready?
Yeah. So I spent several months, really like probably 2019 leading into 2020, kind of feeling, like I would be worshiping with these people in the auditorium on a Sunday morning, and then I would see what they posted throughout the week on Facebook.
Mm,
And I was having a really hard time with the idea that we were worshiping the same Jesus because my Jesus, my understanding of who Christ is and was not pro Trump or pro gun or anti immigrant and or all of these things. It just felt very opposite of what we were supposed to be doing as Christ followers. And so
right.
I found myself like just being angry at church,
Yeah.
which was not healthy, but I would be like, "Oh, we gotta go to church." But we would go to church because, church guilt. Um,
Well, and also, did you think, if I leave, I'm contributing, this is why I stayed as long as I did. If I
yeah.
leave, I'm contributing to the problem. I need to stay and fight and try to
Mhm.
make things better, you know?
Yeah, totally. And it was a conflict. It was a constant back and forth of I need to stay because I want to make this better. But also there was a little bit of am I the crazy one? Because everyone around me seems to
Mhm.
be all in on Trump. And they would look at me like I'm being deceived by Satan.
Yep.
I had people tell me because I didn't vote for Trump ever. I was a one of those never Trumpers. But in 2016, I hadn't deconstructed enough to vote for a Democrat because, in my head, they were still,
Mm.
baby killers.
Yeah.
I, no, I deconstructed that later.
Such a big deal. Why that was it, man. That was the
Yeah.
thing too. And
Oh, I know.
if you saw it any other way, you were a baby killer. And
Yes.
so you really didn't have a choice, you know?
Right. I mean, I was called a baby killer for just not voting for Trump. And I couldn't even
Oh, yeah.
I was like, "Well, I can't vote for" in my head, I was like, "If I vote for a Democrat, all the aborted babies' blood's going to be on my
Oh,
hands." Because
yeah.
that was
Yeah.
things that, those rhetoric
They
that's
told us that.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
regularly said, so you just believe it, everyone else around you. So there was like that, like, I kinda felt like I was constantly being gaslit, but I didn't know what that term was, but I was like, "Am I" like, I remember praying, like, "God, if you want me to vote for Donald Trump, I will, but you're gonna have to make that so obvious. Like, you're gonna have to make a sign that's like,
Yes.
"April, vote for Trump, love God." Um, and thankfully, like, no sign ever came. So I
Yeah.
did not do it. But I was like that wanting to do the right thing so bad. And like, I don't
Mhm.
understand how everyone around me is thinking this way. We're reading the same Bible, we're praying to the
Yeah.
same God, but we're coming away with two completely different things. So that it was that for a while.
Mhm.
Um, and we didn't stop going to church until the pandemic made us.
Really?
So, it was 2020 when we stopped going every week, and even then, we still live streamed the
Of course you
services
did. Yes, yes.
for probably a couple months, and
Wow.
then we kind of like there was one Sunday, Beecher and I looked at each other, and, like, our kids at that point were 2, maybe 2 and no, 1 and 3, and it was just chaos. I was like, "There's
Oh, yeah.
we're not
Mhm.
getting anything from the sermon." I'm just like, "No, no, no, quiet, we're watching TV," like, trying to be good Christians, and at one point, we were just like, "Why are we doing this? Let's just stop." And so
Yeah.
then we stopped, and then when they started the services in person again, we just
Never went back.
didn't go back,
Yeah.
and I do think there was a lot of really hard but needed just space to think for myself without
Mm.
having that weekly dose of indoctrination. And it's not like it was overt, but you just hear these subtle things every week after week after week after week that kind of keeps
Yes.
you from being able to think for yourself.
Yes.
And there wasn't that guilt and there wasn't that shame and there wasn't that pressure to have to think a certain way. And so it was also during this time that Beecher started really questioning or like actually looked themselves in the mirror and was like, I'm gonna figure out who I am. What is my identity? Because we were too scared to
Mm.
ask the question before.
Right.
And so it was kind of this perfect storm of we were stuck at home and all we had to do was think
Mm.
about everything, and we did, and it was existential crisis for sure,
Oh, absolutely,
but it
yeah.
ended up, being good in the
Yeah.
long run, but yeah, it was a lot.
It is so much when you go through it, and you it is I talk about this a lot on the show because I don't know if people really understand, like, scientifically, neuroplasticity and the way that your brain is wired is exactly what you were just talking about, like, the subtle messages that keep feeding your neuro pathways, like, "Oh, this is true, this is real, this is good, this is my foundation, this is it," and the minute something like that, you know, the minute you start thinking other things that go against those neural pathways, scientifically, your brain rewires itself.
Mm,
And you realize, wow, that's why when you leave, they say, well, are you in the word? Are you in
mm,
fellowship with other believers? Are you going to a Bible believing church? They want to make sure that those neural pathways, they don't know that's what it
yeah,
is. But like it is so scientific. And when I realized that, it just made so much sense because I was like, the more information that I was getting as I was learning to think critically, which nobody teaches you that,
no,
in evangelicalism, I was, feeling more and more free of the fear that held me
yeah,
back. So, wow, I mean, like, I'm kinda blown away by how much you guys had to handle going through this, though. Like, with Beecher trying to figure out who they are, and then you trying to figure out, like, what do I believe like, that's a lot, and then to have 2 little kids at the time.
yeah.
Wow, April. No wonder you have a sense of humor.
I know. Well, humor is how I cope. And actually during 2020 was when I downloaded TikTok too and started
Oh,
making content because I was just like, am I the only one? I remember it was May of 2020 that I made my first um kind of like videos that I would still make today. And it
right.
was to a trend at the time on TikTok where you pick the title of a song, and you basically, like, reenact whatever the album cover is for that title, and so,
Yeah.
like, on the first slide, it's words that match that title. So mine was, "When you're a Christian who doesn't like Trump, you get kicked out the club," which is a song, it's a rap song, and
Oh
so
my
but it
gosh.
went like it went super viral. It got
Of
almost a
course it
million
did.
views, which at the
Oh,
time
yeah.
was huge, and I was surprised at how many people were like, "Oh my gosh, I thought I was the only one."
Mhm.
And it was the
Yep.
first moment where I realized, "Oh, I'm not alone in this because I felt alone for so long because I had no one
Same.
to talk to.
Yep.
I would post on Facebook, but that's like my personal friends. And that was, people I knew from my dad's old church, and I had people tell me and rest of my family too that like my late father would be disappointed in us because we didn't
Ugh,
vote for Trump. And so, but seeing like, oh, this is I'm not alone. Like
there are
there's
more
there's like
people.
so much healing in just knowing you're not alone. Like just
Yes.
that alone. And so that kind of started I started making more TikToks. I started impersonating Trump supporters with my kids. It's actually a ladybug Easter basket and I would flip it upside down and that would be my MAGA hat. Um and so I still have it. I ordered a couple more in case one got lost. So I
Oh
have
my
3
gosh.
little ladybug baskets now that are my official MAGA hats.
I
But
love
yeah.
it. That's so funny. Yeah, you posted one not too long ago that was like, somebody saying, "I'm a Christian and I don't go to gay weddings because I don't support sin." And then another woman, which was you in a wig,
Mhm.
or whatever,
Yeah.
would say, "I'm a Christian and I won't vote for Trump because he's a bad guy," or whatever. And
Yeah.
the
Because I
person
can't
said, "Wait,
support
you can't
sin.
say that." Yeah, I
Yeah.
can't support sin. I laughed so hard. I thought that was so funny. And I was like, that is, and yet it's so sad. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's hilarious, but it's also very sad because there's so
Yeah.
much truth in it, which makes it hilarious, which is weird. But,
Yeah. Well, and the
anyway.
hard part is they can't see it. Like, the cognitive
Ah,
dissonance that you constantly have to hold
yes,
is
yes.
exhausting, and you don't
Yeah.
realize it until you're out of it, though, because you're just
It's so
trained
true.
to hold all of these things that
Yeah, I
really
had a
don't go together.
no, they don't. And when you say something like one of my very best friends in South Carolina, I moved to Utah, I guess 5 and a half, almost 6 years ago. And when I moved here, I decided I'm really gonna start taking this seriously, like, really start deconstructing, even though I didn't know that's what it was called. And so I started posting things that were very anti-Trump, um, not pro anything else, but just like,
Right.
"Hey, guys, we're really hypocritical. Hey guys,
Mhm.
do you see this?" And like nobody saw it. I had a friend write to me and say, "I am absolutely stunned that you can't see that he is God's chosen."
Ugh.
And I lost her. She was one of my best friends.
Mm.
She's like, "I've stopped following you. I've stopped because you are clearly deceived." And I thought to myself, is this what's going to happen if I stand up for literally what I believe Jesus would stand up for? I don't understand. It was the most bizarre thing. I was just talking to, actually Tim and Sarah the other day, and I was telling them, "Do you remember the movie Left Behind?" I'm sure you
Mhm.
probably have some
Oh,
trauma
yeah.
from that.
I read
Yeah,
all the books, the kids
all the books.
version.
Well, you know the end of, I think it's the first one where they're all in the boardroom and Carpathia is there and, like, whatever his name is, Kirk Cameron, goes into the bathroom and, like, asks Jesus into his heart, and all of a sudden, he can see what Carpathia is doing, and everybody
Mhm.
is just entranced, and he's like, "How do they not see?" I was like, "That's who
Mhm.
I feel like with
Yeah.
this whole Trump thing." I'm like, "How do you not see this?
Yeah.
How is this okay?" You know? So anyway,
Right.
sorry, I get a little pumped up about it.
No, it's so true though, and, like, I see people too like, I don't think your average, um I get a lot of comments from people that are like, "There's no way anyone believes that Trump is God's chosen. Like, you're making that up." I'm like,
Yeah, they
"No, I
do.
have the DMs. I've
Yeah.
got people, like, real life people." It's not a small number. And
Mm-mm.
if even if and here's my thing, the problem is I do think the majority of Christians in America are probably not Christian nationalists. They
Right,
they they are probably more apathetic
right.
politically because most people are.
Yeah.
Um, but the problem is these churches, the majority of evangelical churches make room for Christian nationalism. They're not calling out like you must vote Republican to be a Christian or you can't be a Christian if you vote Democrat. They're like those people feel comfortable going
Right.
to these churches. And that's like the biggest problem is because I think Christian nationalism is like sneakily kind of rooted in a lot of American evangelicalism. It hides
Mhm.
itself as evangelicalism. So you can't see one from the other because I don't know about you, but I was taught that like to be a good Christian, you love God, you love people, you vote Republican.
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
Republicans, they have God's best interest, that American was founded as a Christian nation, that we should be a
Biblical
Christian nation.
worldview. Yeah.
Yes, a biblical worldview,
Mhm.
Judeo-Christian
Yep.
worldview,
Mhm.
and you don't realize how intertwined your faith and your political views are until you start deconstructing. And so that was like when I was deconstructing, I was also deconstructing a lot of like my more patriotic views too
Yeah.
about like American exceptionalism because it was so connected with my Christianity.
Yeah, and you really don't see it until you step away, because
Mhm.
I think that there is a such thing as, like, it's so close and so a part of you that you can't see it. It's, like, not there
Right.
until you step away and you look from a more, I don't know what the word would be, but, like, a broader perspective where
Yeah.
you can kinda see, "Okay, wait a minute," and I think it's okay to ask those questions, and I think we're so afraid to do that initially because the answers are it's like circular reasoning where you I feel like what has happened is the Bible has just been elevated so much, like the words of the Bible, whether it lines up with what Jesus taught or not,
Yeah.
has the last say. And yeah, it scares me a little bit, that we're as a country just so blinded by this. And it scares me for people, I don't know, like Beecher, people who are struggling with like, I really feel like I'm a homosexual, but I can't say anything about it because my parents will disown me. Or,
Mhm.
people who all these kinds of things are going to become laws. And then I don't know, the autonomy, all of it, it just really bugs me. I'm glad
Oh,
you wrote a
yeah.
book about it. I can't wait till it comes out. I will be
Yeah.
reading it.
Thanks. Yeah, that's kind
Yeah.
of the point of the book too is to tell my own personal story. I mean, and we were very Christian nationalists. I wrote a song that I sang on the Jim Baker show called America Say Jesus.
Stop.
And it's very Christian nationalist. I was 18 at the time,
That's
but
so
I
cute.
was so confident. I was like, "Yes,
Oh
America's
yeah.
a Christian nation. We need to get back to Christianity, and, like, take America back for God, and the way to do that is to say Jesus all the time."
Mm.
Um, ugh, it's so
It's like
cringy. It's
magic.
yeah, but yeah, so, like, that's my hope in that. Because I do think there's a lot of people calling out Christian nationalism, rightly so, but it can be in a very, like, "You're evil" type of way, and you
Mhm.
when you call someone evil or,
Doesn't
like,
work.
that's just a non-starter, like, they're not going
Yeah.
to listen to you after
Right.
that.
Right.
And so and I actually do believe that majority of people, who and maybe not the ones at the very top, like, there are definitely some bad actors
Mhm.
in this world, like the ones that are leading the charge. But the majority of people who are just subscribing to the ideology, I think are actually good people. I think they mean well. I think they have very
Of
good
course.
intentions. I think that what they believe they're doing the right thing. They believe they're standing up for morality because we're also taught that there's that good can only come from God, from the Christian God. And so anyone who's not a Christian can't actually be good. It's like a faux good. It's like a satanic deception kind of good.
Yes.
And
Oh
when
my
you
goodness, I remember being
yeah,
taught that.
yeah,
Yeah.
right. So you believe that and genuinely believe it because you're indoctrinated into this belief, then it makes perfect sense that you would want Christians to lead the country, that you would want your laws to be based on your idea of Christianity. But the danger in it is that you do believe it so hard. So you are harming so many people. Like just because you have good intentions does not negate the harm that you're causing everybody else who does not subscribe to that beliefs, like the marginalized communities. And honestly, like so much of Christian nationalism is also rooted in white supremacy and
Mhm.
white nationalism, but you
Yep.
don't see that when you're in it because you're just kind of viewing the world through your white evangelical lens and you think God's on your side. So you're not going to be like, "Oh, this isn't actually racist because
Yeah.
it's Christian."
Yeah.
Um so yeah.
Yeah.
Um
Not only is God on your side, but you are his voice. You are the voice of God for this
right.
generation. You need to be ready with an answer
Yeah.
when asked about the hope that you carry. I mean,
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
and it does. It really does negate so much. And I feel like it's like what we were talking about, I think initially in our conversation, where when you love somebody, who is going through something or being facing something about themselves, and they're like, what do I do? And it's anti what you've been taught
Mhm.
in the it's the love that changes stuff. That's what changes it,
Right.
is when you love somebody. And I think um what I'm starting to learn, and it's taken me so many years. I mean, I've been deconstructing for, I don't know, 7 or 8 years, and I feel like it's taken me so long to go, I really just love everyone. I don't really care what they believe. I'm not they're not a project for me to fix or whatever. And I think as you fall in love with other humans, you want to stand up for them. You want to help them
Yeah.
have a better life. And you don't wanna always just, I don't know, it would just remind them, "Oh, you're a sinner," and I don't know, to me, it's just so much freer to be able to just love people right where they are.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, totally. And to take the ulterior motive out of
Mm,
it of like, you can't love this person because then you're enabling sin. And then if they die and
right.
go to hell, their blood's on your hands. Like
Oh,
to
I
just,
remember that too. Yeah.
yeah, it's like get rid of that ideology actually frees you up to genuinely love people. And like the saddest part too is that I know at the time that I believed I was loving gay people
Mhm.
when I told them love the sinner, hate the
Same,
sin. Like in my
same.
head, in
Oh,
my
yeah.
heart of hearts, I was like, this is love. It's just tough love because I'm not gonna but when you believe that they would burn alive and be tortured for eternity in a warped view that is loving to try
Mhm,
to save them from that. But it's such a
mhm,
harmful belief, like you don't realize the harm that you're actually causing that person. That was the goal in writing the book too, is that to show like, hey, I don't think you're a bad person.
mm,
I believe just like you. This is what I believed. I know that you believe this. I know that you think what you're doing is good. I get it. I thought the same thing.
yeah.
And like kind of using personal, like my personal stories and journey, just be like, it's okay to change your mind.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's important. I think that there are a lot of voices in the deconstruction community that are so important for people going through deconstruction. I've been trying and I can't figure out how to do it, how to have a voice to, like, be able to speak both languages and be able to help evangelicals see and understand why people deconstruct and what that looks like and what it isn't and what it is.
Right.
I'm struggling because people don't wanna hear it, you know what I
Right.
mean? So, it's hard to have a message for people who probably aren't gonna listen anyway because they're so indoctrinated. So, I don't know.
Right.
I hope your book lands in the hands of a lot of people who, just, like, try to understand. We're so
Yeah.
afraid to hear other perspectives, and that's the whole purpose of my podcast, is so people can hear. Like, just listen. You
Yeah.
don't have to believe what they're saying, but just listen to their perspective and see. They're an educated, lovely human being created in the image of God. Listen,
Mhm.
and see what
Yeah.
happens to your heart. It's amazing.
Yeah. And like that's like be nice thing too. Like when we come across evangelicals in the wild, like
Yeah.
in real life. Um, like if they're willing to hear our story of especially trying to accept Beecher's gender identity as non-binary, because a lot of times like they have no clue. They have no understanding of it. And I
They don't
get
even know what
that.
it means. Yeah,
Right. We
yeah.
didn't know what it meant either. So like we know how to explain it in a way that they can here because we were that way. But
Yeah.
when we find people who are just willing to listen, even if they walk away and don't agree with us, the fact that they took the time to listen, like that's all that we ask for. Like we don't have to agree at the end of the day as long as we
Right.
can like be mutually respectful and not harm someone else because they don't believe what we believe. Like I can accept if you don't if you think I'm going to hell, like whatever. You don't have to
Mhm.
tell me I'm going to hell. Like you could keep
Yeah.
that to yourself and we could mutually respect each other. Um, which I don't believe in hell anymore. So it literally
Yeah.
doesn't mean much to me. But yeah, I think so much, I think it's really hard to hate someone if you have dinner with them.
Mm,
And,
yes.
like I think there's so much that could be solved and fixed if we actually talked and had conversations. And I know like my social media, like Instagram or TikTok or whatever, those videos are not really made for conversation. Like
Yeah.
I'm hoping to ignite someone to think about stuff like because I think comedy can disarm people.
Yes.
But I know like that's not the best place to have those conversations.
No. Yeah, social
Um,
media in general, not so much. Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Face to
but
face, eyeball to eyeball, you know?
right, right, or
It's so
like,
important.
and hopefully in a book too, like where you can actually
Yeah.
be more nuanced. You can't really. There's not a lot of nuance that you can put into like a 60-second sketch.
Yeah.
um,
It's true.
but
But it is I mean, it's incredibly relatable and funny because it's like, wow, that's so true. Nothing is funnier than the truth sometimes, and
right,
just, like, shining a light on it. Let's take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll talk just a little bit about what is next for Miss April and your family, and I would love to know a little more about your family, so stick around,
yeah,
guys, we'll be right back. Okay, we are back, thanks for hanging around. I am here with April Ajoy, and, this has just been such an interesting and I don't know, really thought-provoking conversation, April, just hearing your perspective, everything that you and your spouse have been through and your kids. I would love to know a little bit more about you guys. Where are you from? Where do you live now and what does your everyday look like?
sure. Oh, well, I'm originally from Dallas, Texas, but right now we live in Lexington, Kentucky. Um,
Oh,
my we moved here because my spouse teaches at University of Kentucky.
it's so pretty there.
It is very
So
pretty. It's
pretty.
horse country.
Yes, so
Um,
pretty.
yeah. We have 2 kids. I have a 7-year-old, almost 8. She's in 2nd grade, daughter, and then I have a 5-year-old daughter who's going into kindergarten. So this was my
Mm,
her last year
at
somewhat
home.
home. Yeah.
Yeah. How
So
are
I
you
have a
doing
lot.
with that?
Oh, no, I've cried.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure you
Yeah,
have.
I've shed many tears, but it's a being a mom in the time is such a weird thing, like, because on
Yeah.
one hand, you're so excited and happy for them and excited for the future
Yes.
and glad that they're maturing and growing and thriving and doing all the things that kids are supposed to do, but then it's also really sad because 'cause you're like, "Oh, the baby years are gone, the toddler years are gone, they're gonna
Yes.
start needing me less and less."
Oh my word. Tell me about it. I'm an empty nester, so,
Oh, I know,
so hard, so hard.
I can't imagine.
Sorry, I didn't mean to bring you down. We're all
No,
like
no, it's fine,
we
but
we just
yeah.
we just sigh, but it's all good though. My kids they all live close by, and they're like my best friends. Love them,
Oh, that's awesome.
even though I raised them very strict. We've had a lot of good conversations. They're sweet. They're good.
Oh, good.
Yeah, yeah, and I think it helps, that I have apologized for,
Mm,
the fear that I put into them and the expectations that I put onto them, and I keep saying, "If you guys need to go to therapy, like, I'll pay for it, I'm so
mm,
sorry," and they're like, "Mom, we're fine," and I think they're fine because they got an apology, and they got an
mm,
acknowledgement that what they went through wasn't necessarily so great, so
mm.
if you're a parent and you're listening and you're like, "Man, I feel like I really messed up." No, you didn't. Just talk about it. They're
Yeah.
adults now and they'll be fine. Anyway,
Yeah,
sorry,
I
April.
know. Be sure not I don't think I think the majority of kids, regardless of who your parents are, don't come out unscathed. Like, there's
No.
going to be something
Oh,
because
yeah,
we're
because 'Cause
not
we're humans.
perfect. Yeah,
Right.
we're humans.
Mhm. Exactly. Wow. So what does your life look like? I know you've got one about to start school, what in the fall.
Mhm. Yeah.
What are you gonna do? Do you have plans? Are you gonna, like, do more? What's the thought?
Yeah, so I'm kind of figuring that out. I've never been much of a long-term planner. Things have
Mm.
always just kind of happened
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
me. But yeah, so in the fall though, I'm trying to keep that open because my book's coming out and I've
Mhm.
never released like a book with a publisher before, so I don't know what to expect. I'm like, I feel like it's going to be busy. Maybe it won't
Yeah.
be, but
No, you'll probably be on a lot of podcasts, a lot of
yeah.
signings, things like that. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
so I'm sure in the
exciting.
fall it'll be I will not have a problem staying busy.
Yeah. And it's
But
coming
yeah,
out right around election time, April. That's great
that
timing.
that was by design. I at first it's so funny when we first moved here because we just moved to Lexington last August, and
Mhm.
the day that we moved in, I got my notes from my publisher because I had just turned in like the first the manuscript, the first
Uh-huh.
round, and, it was bad, like, it was like, "You need to redo this," and I was so, 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 so stressed, so the majority of, like, the first
Whew.
s 6 months of living here was just me being a hermit and not being social and, like, I'm like, "I've gotta get this book done. So it'll be nice that like, oh, I'm actually done now. I can come up for air and try to make some
Yeah,
friends and
enjoy it.
um yeah.
That'll be
mm,
fun.
Yeah,
How
so
exciting.
we shall see
We shall.
what
Are
is on the
you
horizon.
are you going to be going to any, events this summer or this fall that are maybe in the deconstruction community people might be able to check you out at?
Potentially, I don't have anything officially scheduled yet. Probably not in the summer. In the summer, I'm gonna be recording my audiobook at some
Oh,
point.
yay! So
Um,
exciting.
yeah, and, this, June's actually, Beecher and I's 10-year anniversary, so we're going to Florida for a few days.
Happy
It's like our
anniversary.
first vacation, just the 2 of us,
Woohoo!
like, long term, like, an actual, like, 5-day vacation since our honeymoon,
Wow.
so
Really?
it's been a minute.
Yeah, it has, and you've been so busy with kids, I'm sure, so oh,
Yeah.
you'll have such a good time. That's awesome.
Yeah, so
Eh,
we're excited. I will keep everybody posted though.
okay.
I'm sure we'll figure it
Yeah,
out.
you may be somewhere. Well, we'll definitely put some links so people can follow you and get to know you a little bit better if they're not already. They probably already are because like you're you're way bigger than my podcast is. So
Oh,
we're getting there though. We're getting there.
yeah,
It's
name it
been
and
fun
claim it.
though. Name it and claim it. Yeah, that's what I hear. I hear it
Mhm.
works.
Yeah,
But
supposedly. Word on the street.
so I will be going to Theology Beer Camp in October. This is my first time doing it. So if you
Nice.
decide to go, it would be so fun to hang out. So
Yeah, I
just
know
a
Tim and
little
I have talked about if we can go. So,
yeah.
a lot depends on what I'm supposed to be doing with my book, and I have no idea.
Yeah,
So,
that's
but I would
true.
like to
That's
go.
true.
So I might be there. If that's
Okay.
one of the events that is potential,
Yes, yes, it's gonna
yeah,
be
potentially
fun.
happening.
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna be there. I've been wanting to go the last few years, but, like, it's my daughter's birthday weekend, so I
Mm,
never wanted to do it, but this year I was like, "So what do you think, Ken?" Her name's Kennedy. She's like,
mm.
"Mom, I'm gonna be 26. You don't need to be here for my birthday." I'm like, "Okay, that's a good point." So anyway, I guess I'm not as needed, which is fine. It's fine.
Mhm.
I'm gonna be fine. But anyway, you have just been such a delight. I've loved getting to know your journey a little better and just what you're up to and appreciate what you're bringing, not just to the deconstruction community, but also hopefully some evangelicals who want to kind of understand us better will, maybe pick up your book in the fall. Is there a way to get it early or are you just waiting for it to come out?
Yeah, it's actually available well, you won't get it early. You can pre-order it
Okay.
now.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Yes, it's available for pre-order pretty much anywhere books are sold,
Okay.
and then, yeah, you'll get it October 1st.
Oh, wow, that's so exciting. Okay, well, good. I'm hoping that it will get in the hands of some people who might even around that time of year, possibly near the election, be considering
Yeah,
other alternatives and other ways of thought and, learning to think more critically. We'll see.
yeah, hopefully.
A girl can hope. A girl can
Yes.
hope. And anyway, thank you so much for coming on, April. I appreciate your time and I honor your journey. I'm so thankful that you and Beecher. It just seems like you've been through a lot over the last few years, and it sounds like you've come out on top, and I love that. That makes me very, very happy. You found your people, and you've got your amazing little family. It's going to be awesome. So good
Thank
luck with
you.
everything.
Thank you, I appreciate it, and name and claim this podcast is gonna be huge.
Oh yeah,
And I
huge, ginormous.
prophesy,
Prophesy right here and now.
lay hands. Yeah.
Thank you, April.